Ever get that feeling when you're, looking at financial news or maybe just your bank statement,
Yeah.
that there's this whole secret language?
Oh, yeah.
Like everyone else gets it, but maybe not you.
Totally.
And that building wealth needs some, I don't know, advanced degree or special access regular folks just don't have.
It can definitely feel that way. It's frustrating, like being on the outside looking in.
Yeah, it really can be.
And, the financial industry hasn't always made things super clear or, well, accessible. Sometimes it almost feels intentionally complicated.
Which benefits certain people, right?
Exactly.
Well, today, we're going to try and tackle that head on. We're looking at a book that honestly strips away a lot of that complexity, and it lays out a surprisingly straightforward path to building wealth. So welcome to Book Talk Finance.
Today we're diving into Andrew Hallam's Millionaire Teacher, the 9 Rules of Wealth You Should Have Learned in School.
And what's really interesting about Hallam is that he's not your typical finance guru.
Yeah. He didn't make his money telling other people how to make money. He actually became a millionaire using the exact ideas in this book.
All while working as a teacher.
Exactly, a regular school teacher. That real-world experience, it just gives his advice, well, a lot of credibility, I think.
It really does. And you can tell he comes from that education background in his writing.
Oh, so?
Well, he just has this knack for breaking down potentially intimidating stuff like investing concepts into really clear, digestible ideas.
Which is exactly what you need when you're talking about your own money, right? Less jargon, more clarity.
Precisely.
Okay, so let's get right to it then. What's the absolute core message? The central idea of Millionaire Teacher. What's he really trying to get across?
At its heart, I think the book delivers this really empowering message. It's basically saying that building financial independence, getting wealthy, it isn't really about having a huge salary.
Okay.
Or becoming some amazing stock-picking genius, or even needing, an expensive financial advisor telling you what to do.
So what is it about then? Hallam really champions the power of simple, consistent actions. Things like focusing on low-cost investments, index funds mainly.
Okay, low cost.
And crucially, living within your means. Those are the most powerful tools anyone has for building wealth, according to him.
Simple but effective, sounds like.
Yeah.
So he breaks this down into 9 specific rules. Rule number 1 is about spending, right? Spend like you want to grow rich.
Exactly.
It feels like the foundation, almost, before you even think about where to invest.
That's spot on. He calls it the Hippocratic Rule of Wealth.
Like the doctor's oath.
Yeah, basically, first, do no harm to your ability to build wealth, that is.
Okay, that makes sense.
So it's not about being super frugal or depriving yourself constantly. It's more about being really mindful, conscious of where your money's actually going.
And making deliberate choices.
Deliberate choices that prioritize saving and investing over, say, impulsive buys or unnecessary spending.
It's interesting because often the focus jumps straight to what stock should I buy or what's the best investment. But he's saying, hold on, the first step is actually getting control of your spending. You have to create that surplus first.
Exactly right. You need something to invest. He talks about these things he calls millionaire handouts.
Millionaire handouts, what are those?
It's just his term for those small, consistent amounts you manage to save and then, crucially, invest regularly.
Ah, okay. Like little gifts to your future self.
Pretty much. On their own, maybe they don't look like much each month. But over time, and this ties right into the next rule, they really, really add up.
And Hallam's own story is proof of that, isn't it?
It absolutely is. His journey to becoming a millionaire on a teacher salary shows how powerful these consistent, perhaps small habits can be over the long run.
Which leads us perfectly into rule number 2. Use the greatest investment ally you have.
Yeah.
And we know what that is, don't we? The incredible power of compound interest.
The 8th wonder of the world, as it's often called. And for good reason.
For anyone who needs a quick refresher, how does that magic actually work?
Well, essentially, compounding means you earn returns not just on the money you initially invested, your principal,
Right.
but also on the interest or returns that your investment has already earned.
So your money starts making money.
And then that new, bigger amount of money starts making even more money. It creates this, snowball effect.
Rolling downhill, getting bigger and bigger.
Exactly. It's not linear growth, it's exponential. And the key is time. The longer you let it work, the more powerful it becomes.
It's like planting a tiny seed, watching it grow into a tree, and then that tree drops seeds that grow into more trees.
Yeah.
It just keeps expanding.
That's a great way to put it. Hallam frames it as gifting money to yourself when you invest regularly.
I like that.
By consistently putting money away into investments that earn a return, you're basically setting up your future self to reap the rewards of this amazing compounding effect.
And the earlier you start, the better, right?
Mhm.
More time for the snowball.
Absolutely critical. The longer that snowball has to roll, the more momentum, the more snow it gathers. Time is your best friend here.
Okay, so we're spending mindfully, creating a surplus. We're investing that surplus consistently.
Right.
We're letting compound interest work its magic. What's next? Rule 3 shines a light on something that can really sabotage that growth.
Yeah, this one's huge.
Small percentages pack big punches.
Yep.
This is about fees, isn't it? Those pesky expense ratios and costs.
Absolutely. This rule really drills down on the impact of investment fees, which people often underestimate.
Because they look small, like 1% or 2%.
Exactly. But even those seemingly tiny percentages charged by, say, mutual funds or other investment products can seriously erode your long-term returns. It's like a tiny, slow leak in your tire.
You don't notice it day to day.
But over 20, 30, 40 years, it leaves you way behind where you could have been. It can be a massive difference.
And what's striking is Hallam's point that understanding this isn't like rocket science. He says even a fifth grader gets it, right?
He does. His point is simple. Paying less in fees means you keep more of your own money. More of your returns stay in your pocket, compounding for you.
Instead of compounding for the fund manager.
Precisely. That's why he's such a strong advocate for low-cost index funds.
Explain those quickly again.
Sure. Index funds are designed simply to track the performance of a broad market index, like the S&P 500 or a total world stock index. They don't try to beat the market.
They just are the market, essentially.
Pretty much. And because they're passively managed, their fees, their expense ratios, are typically super low compared to actively managed funds.
Where you have managers actively picking stocks, trying to outperform.
Right. And those active funds charge much higher fees for that effort. But the irony is the data overwhelmingly shows that over the long term, most active funds fail to beat the simple, low-cost index funds.
So you pay more for worse results, often.
Statistically, yes, that's often the case over long periods. The evidence supporting low-cost indexing is, as Hallam puts it, pretty much irrefutable. Even many finance pros admit it.
Wow. It really makes you scrutinize those annual fees. Over decades, that 1% or 1.5% difference is enormous.
It's potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars for the average investor over their lifetime, money that could have been yours.
Okay, that really drives the point home. Now, that leads into rule number 4, which kind of shifts the focus from external factors like fees to, well, ourselves.
Inwards.
Conquer the enemy in the mirror.
Yeah.
This is about the psychology of investing, isn't it? Our own behavior.
Absolutely. This is all about handling the emotional side of things because, let's face it, markets go up and down, and that can be stressful.
Oh, yeah. You see your balance drop, and that little panic button starts flashing, right?
Yeah.
Sell before it goes lower.
Exactly. Or, on the flip side, you see some stock going through the roof, and you get that FOMO fear of missing out and want to jump in without thinking.
Greed takes over.
Those two emotions, fear and greed, Hallam argues, are often the biggest hurdles to long-term investment success. They cause us to do the wrong things at the wrong times.
So what's the antidote?
Discipline. And understanding the crucial difference between time in the market versus trying to time the market.
Meaning stay invested versus trying to guess the peaks and valleys.
Precisely. Trying to predict exactly when the market will top out or bottom out is incredibly difficult. Bordering on impossible, even for professionals. Most people who try just end up hurting their returns.
Because they sell after a drop and buy back after prices have already recovered.
That's the classic mistake. Buying high and selling low. Hallam stresses that market volatility, those ups and downs, they're just a normal part of investing. They're expected.
And for someone with a long-term view.
For a long-term investor, those dips can actually be opportunities. Opportunities to buy solid investments like index funds at lower prices. But it requires staying calm, having a plan.
And sticking to it.
Yeah.
Not letting the headlines or your gut reactions derail you.
Exactly. Conquer that enemy in the mirror first.
Okay, solid advice. Rule number 5 then takes us into building the actual portfolio. Build mountains of money with a responsible portfolio. What does responsible mean here?
Responsible here really points towards diversification and managing risk appropriately for your situation.
Diversification, not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Correct. Spreading your investments across different types of assets to reduce the overall risk. If one part zigs, another might zag, smoothing out the ride. Hallam specifically brings in the role of bonds here alongside stocks.
Right. Bonds. Sometimes they feel a bit I don't know, less exciting than stocks, especially for younger investors. What's their job in the portfolio?
Their main job is usually stability. Bonds tend to be less volatile than stocks. So during stock market downturns or periods of economic uncertainty, bonds can act as a sort of cushion or anchor for your portfolio.
We don't usually have the same high growth potential as stocks.
Generally not, but they provide that element of stability and can help you sleep better at night when the stock market gets choppy. It's about balance.
And Hallam offers a simple way to achieve this, right? The couch potato portfolio.
He does. It's a great example of a super simple, low-maintenance, diversified strategy. Often it involves just, say, two low-cost index funds, one for global stocks, one for bonds held in a specific ratio based on your risk tolerance.
Set it, and mostly forget it.
Pretty much. Rebalance maybe once a year. It emphasizes simplicity and letting the broad markets do the work for you while managing risk through diversification.
I like that, keeping it manageable. Okay, Rule 6 takes a wider view. Sample a round-the-world ticket to indexing. What's the core message there?
This rule basically just reinforces that these principles, low cost, diversification, index investing, they aren't just, say, a US thing or a UK thing. They work globally.
Ah, so it's universally applicable.
Yeah, he provides examples from different countries, the US, Canada, Singapore, Australia, showing how regular people in various economies have successfully built wealth using these same core ideas.
So no matter where you live, the fundamental strategy holds true.
That's the argument.
Oh.
The power of keeping costs low and diversifying broadly isn't really limited by geography or specific market nuances. It's a robust approach worldwide.
Good to know. Now, Rule 7. This one sounds a bit intriguing, maybe a bit cautionary. Peek inside a pilfer's playbook.
Yes, this delves into the financial advisory world a bit.
Okay, what's the pilfer's playbook about? It sounds like hidden costs or something.
It is, essentially. This rule highlights the various fees and potential conflicts of interest that can sometimes crop up when you work with financial advisors or invest through certain platforms.
Conflicts of interest now.
Well, for instance, an advisor might be incentivized to recommend certain products that pay them a higher commission, even if those products aren't necessarily the absolute best or lowest cost option for you.
Ah, okay. So their interests might not be perfectly aligned with yours.
It's a possibility you need to be aware of. Hallam introduces this idea he calls the totem pole view of fees.
Totem pole.
Yeah, imagine layers of fees stacked on top of each other. You might have the fund's management fee, maybe platform fees, possibly advisor fees, trading costs. They all stack up.
And each layer takes a slice of your return.
Exactly. And sometimes it's not immediately clear just how much the total cost is. This rule is about becoming aware of all those potential layers and understanding where your money is actually going.
So it's a call for transparency and asking the right questions, basically.
Absolutely. Ask how advisors are paid, ask about all the fees involved, understand the total expense. It empowers you to make better choices.
Very important. Okay, rule number 8 is also a warning. Avoid seduction. What kind of temptations should we be avoiding?
This is about resisting the allure of things that promise quick, easy riches or seem too good to be true because they probably are.
Like what specifically?
He warns against getting sucked in by, say, investment newsletters predicting the next big thing with unbelievable certainty.
The hype machines.
Exactly. Also, the high risks often hidden in high-yield junk bonds, and the temptation to just chase whatever market or sector is hottest right now.
Performance chasing.
Right. He also, controversially perhaps, states that gold is not a productive investment. In his view, it doesn't generate income or earnings like stocks or bonds. It's more speculation.
Interesting. So it's about avoiding things driven by hype or emotion rather than sound fundamentals.
Precisely. Stay disciplined, stick to your long-term diversified strategy. Don't get distracted by shiny objects or speculative bets. He also mentions hedge funds.
Yeah.
Suggesting their complexity and typically very high fees make them generally unsuitable and inaccessible for the average investor. Stick to what's understandable, low cost, and proven.
Makes sense. Keep it simple, keep it grounded. Okay, finally, rule number 9. This one feels like a bit of a concession. The 10% stock picking solution, if you really can't help yourself.
Yeah, it sort of acknowledges that some people just really want to try picking individual stocks. They enjoy the research, the process.
The thrill of the chase, maybe.
Perhaps. So Hallam says, okay, if you absolutely must, limit it. Limit that activity to a small, defined portion of your overall portfolio.
Like 10%.
Yeah, maybe around 10% or less. Treat it almost like a play money or educational money,
Yeah.
separate from your core serious long-term investments, which should still be in those low-cost index funds.
And even within that 10%, he gives guidance,
Yeah.
right? It's not just random gambling.
Not at all. He references Warren Buffett's approach, emphasizing investing in solid companies you understand, businesses with a track record, a strong competitive advantage, what Buffett calls a moat, companies with real staying power.
So do your homework. Understand what you're buying.
Absolutely. And be prepared to hold it for the long term. Don't just jump in and out based on headlines. Have a clear reason why you bought it, and ideally a clear rationale for when you might sell, beyond just panic.
So it's a very disciplined, limited approach even to the fun part of investing.
Exactly. It recognizes stock picking is hard. Most people aren't great at it, so don't bet your retirement on it. Keep the bulk of your money in the boring, reliable, diversified stuff.
Okay. So stepping back, looking at all 9 rules, what's the big picture? The ultimate message from Millionaire Teacher.
I think the overarching message is incredibly encouraging and, frankly, democratizing. It's that achieving financial independence, becoming wealthy even, is genuinely within reach for most ordinary people.
Without needing a 6-figure salary or complex strategies.
Right. It comes down to a consistent, relatively simple approach. Spend less than you earn. Save the difference. Invest that difference consistently, primarily in low-cost diversified index funds. Understand and harness compound interest. Keep your investment costs rock bottom.
And manage your own emotions.
And manage your emotions, staying disciplined through market cycles. Build a sensible, diversified portfolio with stocks and bonds appropriate for you. It's not rocket science.
The book's strength really seems to be making these crucial ideas accessible, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Actionable for anyone.
Totally. Whether you're a complete beginner feeling overwhelmed or someone with more experience maybe paying too much in fees, there's value here. It makes you realize building wealth is less about being a financial genius.
And more about consistent, smart habits over time.
Exactly. Discipline and patience beat brilliance often in this game.
These 9 rules, they really do lay out such a clear, practical roadmap. It's genuinely refreshing compared to a lot of the complicated financial advice out there.
It really is. It empowers you to take control, without feeling like you need some secret Wall Street decoder ring.
Well said. So if you've ever felt overwhelmed or just unsure where to even begin with your finances, Millionaire Teacher sounds like a fantastic, very accessible starting point.
Definitely recommend it.
Maybe consider these 9 rules as a solid foundation you could build on for a more secure financial future. It might be worth asking yourself, which of these rules resonates most with you right now? Where could you maybe make a small adjustment?
Yeah, that self-reflection is key.
Thank you so much for joining us for this book talk on finance.
It's been a great discussion. Understanding these fundamentals, it really can be life-changing financially.
We think so too. Subscribe to the channel for more discussions and talks on insightful finance books. And maybe, just maybe, take a moment today to think about one small, simple step you could take based on these ideas to nudge your financial future in a better direction. What could that first small action be for you?